The Crown Prince is a total degenerate, but he's got a thing for married women. While our soldiers were bleeding on the front lines, the prince was sneaking around in disguise, stealing other guys' wives. One day he set his sights on my wife, but she rejected him, saying she was taken. Who would have thought? The prince would literally toss my severed head right at her feet. He smirked. Well, you're single now. My wife didn't shed a single tear. She just gave a little smile, grabbed my head, and hopped right into his carriage. But what the prince didn't know was that I turned into a vengeful ghost, determined to drag this toxic couple straight to hell. The second the carriage curtains opened, I followed Liu Ruyan inside. The prince sat across from her, glaring at my head with pure disgust. He frowned. You already agreed to come home with me. Why are you still hugging that filthy thing? Liu Ruyan smiled gently. She said, Jiboda and I were married after all. It's only right I see him off. The prince got defensive. He asked coldly, Are you mad at me for killing him? Liu Ruyan shook her head. I'm just worried that if he isn't buried properly, his ghost will stick around and haunt you. Your Highness, I almost passed out from anger. Damn it, I literally just died. And you're already simping for the prince. I was absolutely fuming. But the prince was thrilled. He waved his hand dismissively. Fine. I'll take you out of the city to bury him. After that, you belong entirely to me. Liu Ruyan replied submissively. Yes, Your Highness. I kicked her as hard as I could, but my ghost foot just phased right through her. She didn't feel a thing. I really am dead. I can't even touch her anymore. Whatever. Since she's willing to bury me, I'll let it slide. After the prince killed me, he burned my body to ashes. Only my head was left. Once Liu Ruyan buries it, I can finally rest in peace and reincarnate. It's just, we barely spent time together in this life, and now we're parting forever. I actually feel a bit reluctant. It's not that I'm a simp. Liu Ruyan is just way too gorgeous. I floated over to her, staring sadly at her pretty side profile, as if sensing something. She tilted her head and gently rested her forehead on my shoulder. The carriage reached a hill outside the city and stopped in front of a bamboo forest. Liu Ruyan carried my head and got off alone. The prince lifted the curtain, telling her to hurry up. I trailed behind Liu Ruyan and spat back at the prince. What a dog! If I wasn't worried about ruining my reincarnation, I'd turn into a demon and end you right now. Liu Ruyan walked deep into the bamboo forest, cut off a piece of her dress with a small knife, and carefully placed my head on it. At least you have a little conscience left, not just dumping me in the dirt. I floated next to her and looked at my head on the ground. Hair totally messed up, face caked in blood. Honestly, it was pretty gross. I started sighing, complaining that she didn't even clean me up, but she couldn't hear me. She was just focused on digging a hole in the clearing, not using the knife, not using a shovel, just using her bare hands. Soon, the little hole got deeper and deeper, and her hands were covered in blood. I scolded her anxiously, You silly wife, why didn't you borrow a shovel? She still couldn't hear me, and kept digging with her hands. Soon, the grave was ready. Liu Ruyan picked up my head and carefully untangled the knots in my hair. All right, I guess you still care a little. As she brushed through it, she suddenly muttered to herself, Jiboda, did it hurt? Tell me how he killed you. I was speechless. Go ask the prince if you're so brave. What's the point of asking my head? My head can't exactly talk back. I plopped down next to her, swearing, who the hell wouldn't hurt getting their head chopped off? A bunch of his goons pinned me down, beat the absolute crap out of me, and when they got tired, he ordered them to slice my head off. And even that wasn't enough for him. He dragged my body away and burned it. Liu Ruyan didn't react. She was still focused on cleaning up my face. So annoying. She can't hear me anyway. So why even ask? But suddenly, a warm tear dropped right on my face. I looked up. Liu Ruyan was actually crying. Tears kept falling on my face, one after another. She whispered, If it hurt, come tell me in my dreams. She quickly finished fixing my hair, revealing my slightly swollen side profile. She stroked my cheek, and finally, pressed a kiss to my lips. She whispered, Jiboda, you've suffered. I tried to kick her again. Damn it. You're literally about to marry my murderer. And now you're playing the loving wife to a corpse. Too bad. Liu Ruyan couldn't feel my anger at all. She took off the jade pendant she never took off, and placed it on my forehead. Then she carefully wrapped my head in the cloth, and placed it into the dirt hole. Handful by handful, she buried my head in the dirt. After finishing all that, Liu Ruyan walked out of the bamboo forest without looking back, off to embrace her newfound wealth and status. I watched her slowly walk away, silently saying goodbye in my heart, but the very next second, a weird creepy force yanked me forward. In the blink of an eye, I was back by Liu Ruyan's side. I was totally confused. What the hell? Wait, I am a ghost, and I haven't even seen any other ghosts yet. I tried walking back to my grave again, but the moment I got a certain distance away from her, I'd get violently dragged right back to her side. I was completely lost, racking my brain for an answer. They say, if someone dies with a strong obsession, their soul is tethered to the person they obsess over, and refuses to fade away. But I don't have any obsession. Liu Ruyan literally threw herself into the prince's arms. What is there to obsess over? I just want to rush to the underworld, chug Mengpo's soup, and happily reincarnate. So if it's not an obsession, what is it? I looked back at my grave. Just a bare little dirt mound. Right, a tombstone. I don't have a tombstone. That's gotta be why I can't move on to the underworld. So in my life, Liu Ruyan was in such a rush to get back. And sim for the prince, she didn't even set up a stone for me. She's the one acting like she's rushing to reincarnate. I screamed and cursed right next to her, but she just hopped into the prince's carriage looking all cute and delicate-y. As soon as she got in, the prince leaned in with a wicked smirk. Liu Ruyan looked totally submissive, ready for whatever, letting the prince hold her and cop a feel. I couldn't watch this garbage. Furious and heartbroken, I sat on the roof of the carriage. We passed through familiar streets, and were about to pass by the Liu family estate. From a distance, I saw the Liu family gates, and a familiar figure, kneeling on the ground, crying out. The person screamed, "Give me back my son." That woman's voice echoed from afar, completely heart-wrenching. My heart squeezed tight. It was my mom. I came from a poor family. Lost my dad when I was young. My mom raised me all by herself. I immediately floated over to her. My mom, dressed in mourning clothes, was kneeling before the Liu family gates, her fists bleeding from pounding on the door. But the Liu family's gates stayed tightly shut. Nobody paid any attention to her. I desperately wanted to help her up, but my hands just kept phasing right through her body, over and over. I knelt beside her, totally helpless. I had no idea how to help her. Suddenly, the prince's carriage pulled up to the Liu estate. The prince lifted the curtain, and said coldly, "What kind of rural trash dares to make a scene here? Guards, drag her away and execute her." My heart dropped into my stomach. I rushed to the front of the carriage, cursing my lungs out. I hadn't even cursed a few times when my body started burning up. Oh crap, I'm turning into a vengeful demon. If I turn into a demon, I'm going to claim the prince's life. And once I take a life, I'll never be able to reincarnate. But if it means saving my mom, to hell with reincarnation. Just as I was planning exactly how to kill this scumbag, Liu Ruyan suddenly spoke up. She said softly, "Your Highness, today is a joyous occasion for us. It's best not to spill blood on such a day." The prince's expression softened instantly. He leaned lazily against the carriage window, squinting. "Then what do you suggest we do?" he asked. Liu Ruyan said, "Ji Boda's mother is just a country bumpkin. Have her chased out of the city, and ban her from ever returning. That should do it." She added, "If it's inconvenient for your highness to speak, I'm willing to handle it for you." The prince said impatiently, "Fine, whatever. Just make it quick." The prince dropped the curtain. Liu Ruyan stepped out of the carriage and walked up to my mom. As soon as my mom saw her, she slapped her right across the face. She gritted her teeth and practically roared. "I never agreed to this marriage from the start. If Ji Boda hadn't been so damn stubborn about marrying a curse like you, how would he have brought down this disaster upon himself?" Her tears mixed with pure fury. Pointing at Liu Ruyan, she cursed. "His bones aren't even cold yet. And you're already off to marry his murderer. You total tramp. Do you have even a shred of shame left? You Toxic scumbags are going to rot in hell. Give me back my son. Slaps rained down like a storm, landing on Liu Ruyan's face, one after another. But she just bit her lower lip, standing there silently letting the tears fall. She didn't say a single word. When I first met Liu Ruyan, I was just a country boy. The Liu family lived in the capital. Even though they weren't super elite, normally, they wouldn't give someone like me the time of day. But that's normally. I actually met Liu Ruyan out in the mountains. She was there, sightseeing, and I was gathering herbs for my mom. She accidentally fell down a cliff, hurt her leg, and I happened to save her. I put medicine on her wound, and gave her my flatbread to eat. That flatbread was my food for the whole day. I hadn't eaten all day, but I stubbornly told her I wasn't hungry. I'll admit, it's because she was so pretty. Later on, I was terrified she'd look down on me and reject me because I was poor. But Ruyan just held my hand and said softly, "You can't choose the family you're born into. What matters is how you treat me. If someone has a good heart, who cares if they're poor?" The day I went to propose, Ruyan's dad threw an absolute fit. He threatened to have me beaten to death. But Ruyan stopped him, went on a hunger strike, and insisted on marrying me, holding my meager betrothal gifts. I kowtowed over and over at their door, swearing I'd treat her right. Only then did the Liu family finally agree. When we first got married, we were so in love, totally inseparable. But the good times didn't last. A month later, war broke out at the border. I was sent to the front lines and got badly injured. When I was hanging by a thread, all I could think about was Ruyan. I told myself I had to make it back. I had to go back and see my wife, and I was gone for 3 whole years. 3 years later, our army returned victorious. The people lined the streets to welcome us. I hadn't told Ruyan I was coming back, because I was terrified she might have forgotten me, or maybe even remarried. But in that massive crowd, she spotted me instantly. She sprinted over to me and threw herself into my arms, holding me tight. That day, I told her I'd earned military merits, and the emperor would definitely reward me. I told her I was going to build us a new house and give her and my mom a much better life. She smiled radiantly, saying we'd grow old together. After a quick moment together, I had to rejoin the troops heading to the palace to report. Who knew that instead of a reward, I was walking straight to my execution, all because the crown prince was an absolute degenerate, a violent, messed up tyrant. While we soldiers were bleeding out on the front lines, he was using his incognito inspections as an excuse to party and hook up. And because of one random encounter, he became totally obsessed with Liu Ruyan. So, even though he knew she was married, the prince still begged the emperor to let him marry her. Luckily, the emperor said no, and Liu Ruyan rejected the prince to his face. But the prince couldn't handle the rejection. He decided I had to go. So, he literally just sent guys to snatch me right out of the ranks, dragged me to the execution ground, and hacked me to death in the street. Liu Ruyan just stood in front of her family's gates, looking down, letting my mom hit and curse her. When my mom finally got too tired and stopped, slumping to the ground, sobbing, Liu Ruyan called out some servants, telling them to safely escort my mom out of the city. Then she secretly whispered something to one of them. I leaned in to eavesdrop, but couldn't catch it. My mom got in a carriage, and I followed her. I grabbed her arm, wanting to cry, but the tears just wouldn't come. I missed my mom so much. I just wanted to go home with her. But as soon as the carriage drove a bit further, that force yanked on my soul again. I fought it desperately, but completely out of my control. I was dragged right back to Liu Ruyan, and I could only watch helplessly as my mom disappeared down the long street. Suddenly, I remembered living in the countryside with my mom. Back in the day, we were poor, but we were happy every single day. If we had anything good to eat, she always gave it to me first. If we got new clothes, she bought mine first. All the neighbors kept telling her to remarry, saying she needed a man to rely on. But my mom said she was scared I'd be mistreated if she did. A mom who loved me this much, how was she supposed to survive without me? The more I thought about it, the worse I felt. But ghosts can't cry. I could only howl, screaming and cursing, "Liu, you dog. If I knew, I never would have married you. No, I never should have saved you. I should have just let you die at the bottom of that cliff. Liu Ruyan couldn't hear a word. She just stared intently towards the city gates, a look of longing in her eyes. When night fell, Liu Ruyan arrived at the prince's estate. The prince wrapped his arm around her waist as they got out of the carriage. I dragged myself behind them, totally unwilling. The prince's estate is massive, like 10 times the size of my house. Carved beams, jade ornaments, absolutely dripping in gold. No wonder Liu Ruyan couldn't resist. But, as she looked at the glamorous palace, she didn't look happy at all. The prince frowned. What's wrong? You don't seem very thrilled. He stared at her, scrutinizing her, like he was trying to read her mind. Liu Ruyan lowered her eyes and shook her head. Looking so delicate and pitiful, she said, Your Highness, I've just been through so much today. I'm a little exhausted. Besides, Your Highness and I aren't officially together yet. It's honestly inappropriate for me to move in so soon. The prince yanked her into his arms, saying, Oh, please. What's the big deal? I've already told my father about us. He spoils me. The imperial decree for our marriage will be here first thing tomorrow morning. My heart instantly went ice cold. The prince killed me. Then, immediately took my head straight to the Liu estate. There's no way he had time to talk to the emperor, unless they had already agreed on it yesterday. So, the emperor didn't publicly agree to the prince's request. But behind closed doors he gave the okay for the marriage. He fully knew Liu Ruyan was already someone's wife. So, my murder was silently approved by the emperor. I always thought the emperor was a good ruler. But, what kind of good ruler lets his son murder people in broad daylight, just to steal their wives? And I spent 3 brutal years fighting for an emperor like this. I thought Liu Ruyan would react, but she didn't look surprised at all. She just clenched her fists tight, her nails digging deep into her palms. That night, Liu Ruyan moved into a guest room in the prince's estate. I totally thought they were going to sleep together tonight, so I specifically hid it on the roof. Looks like even the prince has rules he won't break. The light in Liu Ruyan's room stayed on. I floated down from the roof, wanting to see what she was up to. Just as I reached the window, Liu Ruyan looked up right in my direction. I froze in shock. She stared right at my face for the longest time. Then, she got up and slowly walked to the window, muttering to herself, The moon is so full tonight. Oh, she was just looking at the moon. Before I left for the war, we promised each other we'd watch the moon together every night. Even when we were miles apart, we'd be looking at the same moon. Thinking about that, my heart skipped a beat, and the bitter sting of missing her faded a bit in the moonlight. Back then, I counted down the days until we'd reunite and watch the moon, side by side. I never imagined that the next time we watched the moon together, we wouldn't be separated by miles, but by life and death. Jiboda, you say the prince has royal blood, unlimited power. Isn't he so impressive? Liu Ruyan suddenly started talking to herself. I was completely done. I jumped up and down, absolutely livid. Sure, yeah, the prince is so impressive. He's super impressive. Stealing wives, murdering husbands, doing whatever the hell he wants, acting like he's above the law. How is that not impressive? Turns out you actually like him this much. Even after he murdered me, you're still into him. Liu Ruyan didn't answer me. Oh, right. She can't hear me. I can only sulk here like a ghost, without even a way to vent my frustration. This whole ghost gig is impossible. I can't even handle one day. Liu Ruyan spoke again. She asked, Jiboda, do you envy the prince? I rolled my eyes. Are you crazy? He murdered me. No matter what, there's zero chance I envy him. But, I kind of had to admit, the prince really does have royal blood. He's on a whole different level than a commoner like me. I sighed and said, the prince is the future emperor. Who wouldn't envy him? But the prince isn't a good ruler. And he's definitely not a good guy. Ruyan. If a man loves you for your look, when your looks fade, his love will die. And when love dies, the connection is broken. The prince is naturally cruel. What happens if he gets bored of you one day? Or what if he sees someone else and decides to murder you too? The second I said that, I actually started to get worried. If the prince really decides to kill Liu Ruyan one day, what is she going to do? Who knew that while I was sitting here, stressing over her, she actually burst out laughing, seriously, thinking about her fabulous life as the crown princess, has got her absolutely beaming. I was so over it. I'm done dealing with you. I let out a roar and started floating towards the roof in a huff. Suddenly, Liu Ruyan opened the door and walked right towards me. I instantly froze in place. Is this a coincidence, or can she actually see me? Liu Ruyan reached out her hand and waved it in the empty space, right exactly where my forehead was. I was absolutely shook. A ghost getting jump-scared by a human is honestly embarrassing. Liu Ruyan smirked. Her dark eyes were like a bottomless, freezing abyss. She leaned in close, whispering so only I could hear, Ji Boda, if you were to become the crown prince, would you want that? My eyes went wide. You can see me. Before I could even finish, a blood-curdling scream erupted from next door, cutting me off completely. Next door was the prince's courtyard. Liu Ruyan's face dropped. She bolted towards the noise, phasing straight through my body on the way. I froze for a split second, then spun around and followed her. The second I entered the courtyard, I was completely stunned by the scene. The prince, in his nightclothes, and looking totally unhinged, was sitting in the middle of the yard, shaking uncontrollably. He was surrounded by a massive, creepy mob of people, closing in on him step by step. Most of them were in rags, covered in gruesome wounds. One guy's arm was literally half severed, just dangling and swinging in the air. Wait a minute, those aren't people. They're ghosts. I was literally just wondering why I hadn't seen any other ghosts since I died. Didn't expect to run into a whole squad of them at once. The ghost mobs circled the prince, baring their teeth, looking like they were ready to rip him apart. The prince could obviously see them too. He was so terrified he curled into a little ball, covering his head. Liu Ruyan, on the other hand, was totally chill. She walked straight towards the prince. As she passed through the mob of ghosts, they actually stopped dead in their tracks. Liu Ruyan crouched down, helping him up. Your Highness, what's wrong? The prince was shivering. Ghosts! There are ghosts. Can't you see them? Liu Ruyan casually glanced around, shook her head looking totally clueless, and said, Your Highness, it's just the two of us in this courtyard. Now I was the one who was totally lost. Wait a minute. She was literally just saying weird stuff to me. I really thought she could see me. And if she could see me, she should definitely see this yard full of ghosts. Does she actually not see me or them? Was she just talking to herself earlier? And just happened to look exactly in my direction while doing it. But then why did the ghost mob back off when they saw her? While I was racking my brain over this the prince went ahead and asked the million-dollar question. The prince asked, Why are these ghosts avoiding you? Liu Ruyan tilted her head. They're avoiding me. She frowned, pretending to think hard. Suddenly, acting like she just had a light bulb moment, she pulled a red silk pouch from her waist and said, Could it be because of this pouch? The prince asked, What is that? Liu Ruyan replied, During the years, my late husband was fighting at the border. I was left all alone. I kept having horrible nightmares. A sorcerer from the western regions told me it was because my husband was racking up a crazy kill count at the border, and the vengeful spirits of those soldiers were lingering. That's what was giving me nightmares. I paid him a fortune to help me, and he gave me this pouch. He said it would keep the ghosts from messing with me. I was stunned. Did Liu Ruyan really suffer that much all these years? I was just starting to feel bad for her when the prince suddenly snatched the pouch right out of her hand. He said, If this pouch is so good, let me use it. Liu Ruyan gave a sweet, charming smile. If your highness wants it, take it. What's mine is yours, your highness. Wow. And here I was feeling bad for her. Meanwhile, she's literally stabbing me in the heart. Liu Ruyan continued. It's just that the prince's estate is supposed to be in a prime feng shui spot. Why would there be ghosts running wild here? The prince sneered. Just a bunch of damn peasants. Can't even stay dead quietly. Tomorrow I'll hire a sorcerer to wipe them all out. Liu Ruyan sighed. I'm just afraid it's going to be a long night. This little pouch might not hold up until morning, Zhao. The prince started panicking. He asked, Then what do we do? Liu Ruyan said, I actually learned a bit of ghost hunting magic from that western sorcerer. Why don't you let me try? Maybe I can solve your highness's little ghost problem. Damn, Liu Ruyan really couldn't sit still at home. She was out here unlocking new skills. After getting the green light from the prince, Liu Ruyan went back to her room, grabbed some paper and brush, and sat in the courtyard, drawing a talisman. I got curious and floated over to peek. The lines on the paper were all messy and complex. But it actually looked pretty legit. Wait, does she actually know what she's doing? Am I gonna get exercised by her too? I waved my hands frantically in front of her face. Hey, don't kill me. Liu Ruyan completely ignored me, super focused on drawing her talisman. A minute later, she held up the talisman paper and started muttering an incantation. The prince was hiding by the window, death gripping that pouch, peeking out nervously. The next second, Liu Ruyan shouted, "Break!" As she shouted that word, I saw a wave of blue light shoot towards the prince, wrapping around him like a shield. The ghosts looked around, looked at me, looked at each other. Zero reaction. What a joke. Not a single ghost got exorcised. She really is just a total amateur. Just when I thought her little ghost hunting gig was a flop, the prince suddenly cheered. He laughed. Ha ha ha. They're all gone. They're gone. This is awesome. Liu Ruyan turned around and gave him a sweet, gentle smile. She said, "All the ghosts have been eliminated. Your Highness can relax now." The prince nodded. "Good. Tonight you're guarding my door, just in case any other ghosts show up. You can take them out for me." Okay. Liu Ruyan played the obedient girl, sitting nicely right outside his door. Their whole back and forth left me absolutely dumbfounded. The ghosts were literally just standing there, chilling in the yard. Who exactly got eliminated? A clear voice suddenly rang in my ear. She said, "Hey there! Were you killed by the prince too?" I jumped out of my skin. I spun around and saw a pale but super pretty girl. I nodded. "Yeah, the prince killed me." "You too." The girl sighed. We all were. The other ghosts saw us chatting and crowded around, starting to vent their trauma. One ghost said, "That day, I didn't dodge the prince's carriage fast enough, so he killed me." Another ghost said, "Mine's even more insane. I was wearing a yellow dress, and the prince had his men stab me to death. Said yellow was ugly." Another ghost chimed in, "Ah, we're all so unlucky. I literally just bought my kid a candied hawthorn stick, and the prince slaughtered both of us. Said the emperor wouldn't let him eat them when he was a kid." I was totally speechless. Hearing all this, it clicked. These pretty girls, random pedestrians, and that poor mother and child, all innocent victims of the prince. To the prince, we're just worthless peasants. But we were all just trying our best to live. Yeah, and he ruthlessly stripped us of even the basic right to exist. Power really is a messed up thing. It makes people flock to it like crazy, but it also turns people into monsters scarier than ghosts. I asked the girl, "So, are you guys all gathered here to take the prince's life?" The girl said, "I mean, killing him would be great. But if a ghost murders a living person, they get banned from reincarnation." She said, "We really just want to traumatize him a bit, and get some kind of justice for ourselves." I asked, confused, but looking at the prince. He clearly hasn't seen ghosts before, right? Why did you all decide to jump scare him today of all days? The girl replied, "We've actually been here a long time." She said, "Before, the prince had a ghost-repelling barrier on him. We couldn't get anywhere near him, and he couldn't see us either. But tonight, right after he brought that woman home, the barrier completely shattered. That's why we were able to scare the living daylights out of him. Until just a minute ago, when that woman slapped a talisman on him, and his barrier went back up." I looked down, deep in thought. The woman was obviously Liu Ruyan. The second Liu Ruyan showed up, the prince's barrier broke. Did Liu Ruyan sabotage it or something? The talisman she drew for the prince only restored his ghost-blocking shield, so why did she lie to him, claiming she'd completely wiped out all the ghosts? I looked over at the door. Liu Ruyan had her eyes closed, just chilling on the bamboo mat the prince gave her, acting like she totally couldn't see the yard full of ghosts. I pointed at Liu Ruyan and asked, "What about that woman? Can you guys get near her?" The girl shook her head. "She's got a ghost-repelling barrier too. But her barrier isn't coming from that pouch she gave the prince." Well, damn. Liu Ruyan definitely wasn't telling the prince the whole truth. What the hell is she plotting? I crouched down in front of her and waved my hand right in her face. Liu Ruyan opened her eyes, but looked right past me. I decided to call her bluff. I shouted, "Hey, Liu Ruyan, drop the act. I know you can see me. Liu Ruyan just stared at the floor, ignoring me completely. I said, if you keep ignoring me, I'm gonna tell all these ghosts about that embarrassing time you fell off a cliff. Still zero reaction from her. I got mad. Liu Ruyan, I'm gonna turn into a vengeful demon and kill both you and the prince. I threw my hands up and tried to look as scary as possible. The very next second, she closed her eyes and fell fast asleep. I was so done. To test her, I stayed up screaming in her ear all night long. She slept like a literal baby. I finally concluded. Her talking to me last night was 100% just a coincidence. She can't see me at all. I also noticed I'm a bit different from the other ghosts. The other ghosts couldn't get anywhere near the prince or Liu Ruyan, but I was completely unaffected. I could literally phase right through the prince and Liu Ruyan. Plus, the other ghosts could roam around anywhere, outside the estate, but the second I got too far from Liu Ruyan, I'd get violently yanked back. Did someone mess with my soul or something? When daytime hit, the ghost squad lost all their energy and hid in dark corners to recharge. Except me. I was forced to hover within a few dozen feet of Liu Ruyan, like a dog tied to a post. Since I couldn't wander off, I just floated straight into the prince's room. I really wanted to see what Liu Ruyan's actual vibe with the prince was. I shouldn't have looked. It almost literally killed me again. Liu Ruyan woke up super early, bolted to his bed, and just stared intensely at him. So freaking shameless. When the sun was high up, the prince finally woke up too. Seeing her, he paused for a sec, then flashed a totally smitten smile and said, "Did you stay up watching over me all night, playing the innocent angel?" She said, "I did. Thank goodness. No more filthy spirits came to bother your highness." I rolled my eyes into another dimension. This girl literally passed out the second she lay down. The audacity to claim she guarded him all night. But the prince didn't know that. He was thrilled and gazed deeply into her eyes. His soft eyes looked like they were practically dripping with affection. Honestly, if he hadn't literally murdered me, I might have thought he was some charming, elegant gentleman. Everyone knows you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. Too bad no one can resist doing it anyway. Just like I couldn't resist Liu Ruyan, and she couldn't resist the prince. After a hot minute of heavy flirting, the prince suddenly grabbed his forehead. He said, "Liu Ruyan, I don't know why, but I feel completely drained. I have zero energy." Liu Ruyan knitted her brows, looking super worried. She asked anxiously if your highness is unwell. Should we call a royal doctor to check on you? The prince nodded. Good idea. If my father hears I'm sick, he'll be super worried. It's no secret the emperor completely spoils the prince. Everyone knows it. I just never would have imagined he'd let his son get away with murdering innocent people. In the afternoon, the doctor arrived. He checked him out but couldn't find anything wrong. He just said the prince was spooked, told him to take some calming meds, and stay in bed to rest. After the doctor left, the prince got up and had lunch with Liu Ruyan. Then he went back to lay on the couch. Liu Ruyan brewed his medicine herself and spoon-fed it to him. Watching her act so sweet and attentive, I sighed and thought, God, if there really is a next life, let me be a crown prince too. I don't know if I was hallucinating, but I saw Liu Ruyan freeze for a split second. A bit later, the prince fell asleep. Liu Ruyan got up, walked over to the desk, and literally sat right on my head. I yelled, "Hey, watch where you're sitting." Grumbling, I shimmied out from under her and sat down next to her. She pulled out a book and started flipping through it. I leaned in to check it out. Oh, it was the graphic novel I'd been reading. When I was alive, my favorite hobby was reading those. After we got married, Liu Ruyan and I used to hit the streets to buy new ones all the time. When I got deployed, I took this exact book with me. Whenever I had downtime and missed her, I'd read it. Getting lost in the story helped me take my mind off her for a bit. Too bad I got killed before I could finish it. I didn't expect her to actually bring it with her to the prince's estate. Wow, okay, I die, and instead of burning it for me, you hoard it for yourself. I aggressively kicked her 3 times. She opened the book, and inside was the leaf bookmark I made. She stared at the bookmark for a second, then pulled it out. I thought she was gonna start from page 1, but she picked up exactly where my bookmark left off. I was hyped. I happily draped my arm over her shoulder and read along with her as she slowly turned the pages. The sunset glow caught her pale, slender fingers, just like when I was alive. That whole day, besides eating and taking meds, the prince basically just slept. Thanks to him, I got to read comics all day. Early the next morning, an imperial decree arrived at the estate. It said the emperor was worried about the prince's health, so the wedding was being postponed. He also ordered Liu Ruyan back to her family home until the prince was fully recovered. When the prince heard, he threw an absolute fit, screaming to see the emperor. He insisted on keeping her there. Liu Ruyan patiently tried to calm him down, telling him to listen to his dad. That just made him madder. He snapped, "What do you know? Don't push your luck. Remember your place. Who do you think you are, telling me what to do?" He went on. "Whatever I ask for, my father gives me. He'll agree to this sooner or later." Liu Ruyan sighed and brought over his medicine bowl. She said softly, "Your Highness, your medicine is getting cold. Drink this first, then worry about the wedding." Out of nowhere, the prince grabbed the bowl and threw it right at her. She didn't even have time to dodge. It smashed right into her face. Dark green liquid slowly dripped down her skin, and a thin cut appeared on her gorgeous face. That was literally my favorite face. I was furious. I pointed at him and yelled, "What the hell is your problem? She was just trying to help. How dare you hit her?" Of course, he couldn't hear me. He just glared at her, breathing heavy, without a single ounce of guilt. At that moment, it suddenly hit me. The prince doesn't actually like Liu Ruyan at all. He probably just thought she was pretty and wanted a new toy. But then she bruised his ego by rejecting him. And for these royal types, ego is everything. It was her rejecting him that made him so obsessed with claiming her, no matter the cost. I suddenly felt really bad for her future. Married to a toxic walking red flag like him, her life is gonna be hell. Liu Ruyan's temper was insanely good though. She just wiped her face and said, "I'm sorry for upsetting your highness. The medicine spilled. I'll go brew another bowl." I couldn't help but laugh at myself. Here I am, a literal ghost, stressing over her. You know what they say. Maybe she's secretly into this toxic dynamic. Why am I even worrying? But the prince's next sentence wiped the smile right off my face. He said, "I've got it figured out. This has to be Jiboda's ghost, messing with me. Right after I killed him, my estate gets haunted. I'm sending guards to find his mom and kill her too." I jumped up instantly. I screamed, "Your house is haunted because your karma is absolute garbage. It has nothing to do with me. Leave my mom out of this." He obviously couldn't hear me. He seriously called in a guard to order the hit on my mom. I panicked. "Liu Ruyan," I yelled, "talk him out of it." I knew she couldn't hear me, but she saved my mom yesterday, so she'd definitely help her again today, right? That's what I desperately hope. But Liu Ruyan's face was completely blank, no emotion at all. She just pressed her lips together and said, "If it pleases your highness, just a peasant. Your highness can kill whoever you want." I froze. Oh, okay, wow. So speaking up for my mom yesterday was totally fake. Saying I suffered? Fake. Saying she wanted me to be the crown prince? All fake. Liu Ruyan, I'm gonna turn into a demon and drag both of you to hell. The second I had that thought, my body started burning up. I knew it was the first sign of becoming a vengeful spirit. But whatever. Screw reincarnation. My life was short. But being my mom's son was the best thing about it. I was just about to attack the prince when Liu Ruyan suddenly waved her hand in front of my face, and I instantly blacked out. When I woke up, I had no idea how much time had passed. Liu Ruyan was sitting in the estate's main hall, and I was sprawled on the floor next to her. I slowly sat up, my brain feeling like total mush. What just happened? I remembered the prince saying he was gonna kill my mom, and Liu Ruyan refusing to help. I got so pissed I was ready to go full demon mode on them. But right before I fully turned, I suddenly passed out. Can ghosts even pass out? I touched my head. My fingers went right through it. I'm literally just a floating soul. I don't even have a body. How do I have a head to touch? Suddenly, footsteps echoed outside. The prince walked in, followed by a middle-aged guy. who looked incredibly intimidating. Before I could even get a good look at the guy's face, Liu Ruyan dropped to her knees. She said, paying respects to the emperor. "Oh, so this is the legendary emperor. Why is he at the prince's estate? How long was I knocked out for? Has my mom already been killed?" With so many questions, I decided to hold off on attack and see how this played out. The emperor took the main seat in the hall, with the prince sitting beside him. The prince said, "Father, I'm feeling so much better now. Please, just give me the okay to get married." He sounded totally sincere, eyes locked in. That level of obsession couldn't be faked. The emperor's face was completely dark. "Do you seriously have to make a widow your crown princess? This is completely ridiculous." The prince emphasized every word. "Father, I genuinely love Lady Ruyan. Look at the haunting in my estate. It's all thanks to Lady Ruyan that I have any peace. When nightmares plague me, she's the one guarding my side. So, I can finally sleep." The emperor frowned. "That's what my royal sorcerers are for. They can do all that too." Wait, the emperor has his own sorcerers. Right, the prince's ghost-repelling barrier couldn't have just been something he was born with it. If the emperor has sorcerers on hand, why not just send them to wipe out the ghosts in the prince's estate? It only took a second for me to figure it out. The prince murders people like it's a casual hobby. There's no way to ever fully clear out the ghosts. Giving him a permanent ghost-repelling barrier is definitely the easiest fix. But to work directly for the emperor, that sorcerer must be seriously overpowered. And if they're so powerful, how did the prince's barrier break? I couldn't help but look at Liu Ruyan. Did she do it? The emperor and the prince were at a total stalemate. Liu Ruyan just kept her eyes down, not saying a single word. Eventually, the emperor caved to the prince. He reluctantly left the royal decree for the marriage. Liu Ruyan knelt alongside the prince to thank him, still wearing that same faint smile. It suddenly reminded me of when I proposed to her. I was kneeling at her family's door, and she was on a hunger strike inside. When her dad finally agreed, she was so happy she almost jumped. But because she hadn't eaten, she got dizzy and literally fell right into my arms. Looking at her, looking so vulnerable and cute, I was happier than I'd ever been. Liu Ruyan. She's gorgeous even when passing out, and this stunning girl was going to be my wife forever. It's just a shame forever was so short. The prince took the decree, looking at Liu Ruyan with pure joy. Liu Ruyan smiled back, but I could tell she wasn't actually happy. There was even a hint of worry in her eyes. The wedding was set for 3 days later. Over those 3 days, the estate was packed with people sent by the emperor to help prep for the big day. The prince was doing better, but still super low energy. But hey, he's the prince. The servants handle literally everything. All he had to do was sleep and rest. While he slept, Liu Ruyan read my comic book next to him. But I just couldn't focus on it. I still didn't know what happened to my mom. These past 2 days, I tried gathering enough resentment to turn into a demon. But for some reason, the anger just kept slipping away. I couldn't hold on to it at all. I guess I really am just useless. Couldn't protect myself. Couldn't protect my mom. Even as a ghost, I can't get revenge on the prince. I just sighed all day long. Liu Ruyan, though, was living her best life. She got bored of the comic after 2 pages, and kept leaving the prince's courtyard to stroll around the estate. I definitely didn't want to be alone with the prince, so I just hovered right above her head, following her around on her walks like a balloon. And honestly, my mind was blown. I might be a country boy, but the wedding I gave Liu Ruyan was totally on par with some city folks. But seeing the prep for the prince's wedding, yeah, we were completely out of our league. Right now, the prince's estate looked like a literal treasure vault. Even the red ribbons hanging from the roof had gold thread in them. I was staring in total disbelief. All this wealth, if they just gave it to the villagers who were literally starving, it would change everything. While I was floating, I suddenly spotted someone sneaking around. He was wearing a long gray robe, holding something long in his hand, hugging the wall, and heading straight for the prince's courtyard. There were so many people around. Liu Ruyan completely missed him, but from up here, I had a perfect view. The thing in his hand was a wooden sword carved with runes. It instantly clicked. The Emperor's sorcerer. Is this the guy who set up the ghost barrier for the prince in the first place? Oh crap. This guy is obviously highly leveled. If the ghost invasion really was Liu Ruyan's doing, he's 100% going to catch her. No time to think. I quickly followed him. The prince's courtyard was usually empty. So, the sorcerer slipped right into his room. He walked up to the bed, raised his wooden sword, closed his eyes, and started chanting. Suddenly, the prince glowed blue. It was the exact same ghost-repelling barrier Liu Ruyan gave him that night. The sorcerer's eyes snapped open, looking at the prince, and his face totally dropped. He immediately shook the prince awake. The prince rubbed his eyes, seeing the sorcerer. He frowned and asked, "Why are you here? Where's Liu Ruyan?" The sorcerer immediately dropped to his knees. He said, "Your Highness, the Emperor sent me to investigate the haunting. I'm begging you, stay away from Liu Ruyan. The barrier she cast on you is actually—" The prince rudely cut him off. "Enough," he snapped. "You're just mad you got outplayed. Your barrier completely failed, and I was almost killed by ghosts. I'm already being generous by not punishing you. How dare you try to throw Liu Ruyan under the bus? If it wasn't for her, I'd be dead already." The sorcerer panicked. He said, "Your Highness, I just searched the entire estate. Liu Ruyan is—" Before he could finish, a cloud of black smoke shot through the window. Moving faster than lightning, it smashed right into the sorcerer. The sorcerer froze completely, like he was paralyzed. The next second, acting totally possessed, he swung his wooden sword and lunged at the prince. The prince screamed, scrambling back into the corner of the bed. The sorcerer jumped onto the bed, making a freakish, inhuman sound. He shrieked, "I'm going to kill you! I'm going to kill you!" Just as the wooden sword was about to plunge into the prince's chest, Liu Ruyan burst through the door. She chanted a spell and pointed right at the sorcerer. The sorcerer coughed up a mouthful of black blood, went completely limp, and rolled off the bed. He was dead. The black smoke ripped out of his body and vanished out the window. Liu Ruyan didn't even care about the smoke. Looking super concerned, she checked on the prince, who was now completely covered in the sorcerer's blood. She asked, "Your Highness, are you okay?" The prince was shaking violently, his eyes unfocused, staring at the dead body. He tried to kill me. Someone tried to kill me." Liu Ruyan grabbed his hand and said, "It's okay, Your Highness. He's dead now." The prince threw himself into her arms and bawled his eyes out like a literal baby. 2 hours later, the prince finally pulled it together. They both had an unspoken agreement to never bring up his total meltdown just now. Liu Ruyan told the prince that even though ghosts can't get past his barrier, they can possess humans. But only someone with bad intentions can be possessed by a demon. And clearly, the sorcerer was that person with bad intentions. After Liu Ruyan literally saved his life twice, the prince trusted her 100%. He even ordered that from now on, only Liu Ruyan was allowed in his room. At sunset, another royal decree arrived. It said because the sorcerer incident traumatized the prince, the wedding was postponed again. The prince was feeling pretty out of it, so he didn't argue. That night, Liu Ruyan was in the courtyard brewing his medicine. I floated over. Usually when she made his medicine, I'd just sit on the roof and look at the clouds. I hated seeing her hustle and play nurse for my murderer. But the sorcerer thing was way too sus. I seriously suspected Liu Ruyan set the whole thing up all. But if she wanted the prince dead, why did she bust in at the last second to save him? I couldn't figure it out. So I decided to stick to her like glue and catch any red flags. Right now, Liu Ruyan was carefully adding the herbs from the royal pharmacy into the pot. After all the herbs were in, she subtly flicked her wrist. Plop! A tiny black pill dropped into the brew. Weird. That definitely wasn't from the pharmacy. I was just about to float closer to get a better look when a guard rushed in, looking completely panicked. He said he had something urgent to report. Liu Ruyan didn't even look up. She just said coolly, "His Highness ordered that absolutely no one is allowed in his room, except whatever it is, tell me." The guard stuttered. His Highness ordered me to eliminate Ji's mother. But Liu Ruyan asked. You what? She looked up, giving him an icy stare. The guard suddenly dropped to his knees, slamming his forehead against the ground. He said, when I got to the G house, it was completely empty. I've been searching for days, and I can't find his mother anywhere. I know failing a royal order is a death sentence. Please, Lady Ruyan begged for me. Please, ask His Highness to spare my life. Hearing that, I was so hyped. My mom wasn't dead, but why would she randomly move out? Liu Ruyan didn't look surprised at all. She stayed quiet for a long time, then said coldly, His Highness is unwell. He doesn't need to know about this. You are dismissed. The guard kowtowed wildly, thanking her. Thank you for saving my life, Lady Ruyan. Thank you. Liu Ruyan ignored him and went back to making the prince's medicine. I sat down across from her, looking at her focused face. I asked, was it you? I said, was it you who made my mom move, right? Liu Ruyan didn't answer. She was carefully fanning the medicine pot. But I already knew the answer. That day, in front of her family's estate, when she secretly whispered to the servant, that must have been it. I said, Ruyan, thank you. I genuinely meant it, even if she was busting her back for the prince right now. Liu Ruyan kept fanning the pot, but a tiny smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. The next day, a royal doctor showed up. Since the sorcerer died, the emperor was clearly getting suspicious. Luckily, the prince's body was totally fine. Even some chronic issues he'd had since birth had gotten way better. Under Liu Ruyan's careful watch, the prince got healthier and stronger. Hearing this, the emperor finally dropped his guard and picked a new date for the wedding. While waiting for the big day, the prince would occasionally take Liu Ruyan out. I'd tag along behind them, watching them act like a normal couple, shopping and catching shows. The prince's temper was super volatile, and he'd randomly want to kill someone. But Liu Ruyan always stopped him. Slowly, his murderous vibes faded a ton. It honestly seemed like he'd turned a new leaf. If someone bumped into him on the street, he didn't even get mad anymore. He'd even throw them some silver, trailing behind them. Watching this perfectly harmonious scene, I suddenly felt a sense of closure. Maybe Liu Ruyan really could change the prince. And honestly, isn't that a good thing? From now on, no more innocent people would die on his orders. If this was what Liu Ruyan truly wanted to do, the future she chose, I was willing to genuinely wish her well. Little did I know, changing the prince was never what she wanted. On the 15th of the month, Liu Ruyan was in the prince's room as usual, and I was hanging out in the courtyard chatting with the ghost squad. Some of them saw that the prince stopped killing, felt happy, let go of their grudges, and went to reincarnate. But others still desperately wanted revenge. So they stuck around the estate waiting for an opening. They asked what my plan was. I sighed. I want to reincarnate too, but I literally can't leave. They all started trying to psychoanalyze me. Some said I must have some unfinished business. Others said I was just too hopelessly in love with Liu Ruyan to actually leave her. I shrugged and denied everything. While we were chatting and having a good time, the oldest female ghost suddenly went wide-eyed, staring dead at the prince's room. I asked her what was wrong. She said, I can feel it. She said, the prince's barrier feels like it's fading. Hearing that, the ghost mob went absolutely feral, swarming the prince's room. I quickly chased after them. The ghosts left behind were the ones out for blood. If the prince's barrier actually broke, things were gonna get real ugly, real fast. I didn't know what was up with Liu Ruyan. She'd been helping the prince this whole time, so these ghosts might not spare her either. When I got inside, I saw the prince holding Liu Ruyan close, telling her all about his nightmares. The female ghost said, his barrier is still there. I pushed through the mob to get a closer look. Sure enough, the prince still had a blue glow around him. It was just noticeably dimmer than before. I reached out, wanting to touch the light, and Liu Ruyan suddenly looked up at me. Lately, her eyes had been landing on me like this, occasionally. I just figured it was a coincidence, and didn't think much of it. Ji Boda, she suddenly said, calling my name. I froze, my hand hovering mid-air. Liu Ruyan. What did you say? The prince looked at her, totally confused. Liu Ruyan turned to him, flashing a brilliant smile. She said, Your Highness. It's time. She raised her hand, and gently tapped the prince's forehead. Instantly, the blue glow around him vanished. The next second, his eyes went wide with terror, and a blood-curdling scream pierced the night. The female ghost cackled. His barrier is gone. Laughing maniacally, she threw herself at the prince. The prince was instantly swarmed by the ghosts, completely disappearing beneath them. I was left standing there, totally stunned, watching Liu Ruyan walk straight through the mob towards me, the light of the full moon reflected in her clear eyes. She said, "Ji Boda, didn't you say you wanted to be the crown prince in your next life? A full moon night, 100 vengeful ghosts." The exact moment the prince's soul was ripped from his body, a massive force sucked me in. When I opened my eyes again, it was 3 days later. It was dead quiet. No ghosts, no prince. Just Liu Ruyan. She was sitting by the bed, smiling down at me, just like before. A smile more beautiful and gentle than anyone else in the world. I reached out, slowly raising my hand to her face. I could feel the actual warmth of her skin under my fingertips. Tears suddenly welled up. I'd guessed early on that the chaotic events in the estate were all orchestrated by Liu Ruyan, but I never, ever imagined that I'd actually get to be alive again. Liu Ruyan told me the nightmares thing was a total lie, but knowing a Western sorcerer, that was real. She'd saved a sorcerer who almost starved to death outside her door, and in return, he taught her absolutely everything he knew. When she rejected the prince and embarrassed him at court, she figured he'd try to get revenge. She just never thought he'd go so far as to brutally murder me. When she buried me, she cast a soul-binding spell on the jade pendant she always wore, and buried it with my head. That's how she managed to tether my soul to her. I asked, "So you plan to body swap me and the prince from the very beginning?" Liu Ruyan nodded. "But the body-swapping spell has insane requirements. The prince had to drink soul-severing soup for 15 days straight, and constantly carry your hair on him. Only when his mental defenses hit absolute rock bottom would his soul leave his body and give you the chance to take over." Once she explained it, it all made perfect sense. The ingredients for the soul-severing soup were inside that black pill she dropped in his meds. She insisted on brewing his medicine herself every single day, just to make sure he drank it without fail. And on top of the soul-severing soup, Liu Ruyan also packed his meds with stuff to boost his physical health. Her logic: "You're gonna be using this body anyway, so I might as well make the prince juice it up for you." And obviously, she was behind that possessed sorcerer too. When the full moon arrived, and ghost energy was at its peak, Liu Ruyan shattered his barrier. A whole room of ghosts, jumping him, completely destroyed what was left of his mind. I asked, "What about the hair? How did you get him to carry my hair around?" She just pointed at me. On my waist was that red silk pouch. Oh right. Literally the first night she arrived, she gave him that pouch. The prince would never have guessed that his ghost-repelling pouch was actually stuffed with my hair. I asked again, "And the prince? What happened to him?" I wasn't actually worried about him. I was worried about the ghosts. They were all innocent people. If they became vengeful demons by killing him and lost their chance to reincarnate, it really wasn't worth it. At the mention of the prince, Liu Ruyan's expression went ice cold. She bit her lip and said, "After the body swap, his soul is trapped, feeling every ounce of pain you went through. The beheading, the burning, he won't escape any of it." As for the ghost mob, once they saw him getting his karma, they dropped their vendettas and went to reincarnate. I asked, "And the prince? Did he reincarnate too?" She gave a soft chuckle. "Do you want to see him?" A pale blue light swirled around me, and the next second, I saw a translucent figure floating mid-air. It was the prince. Well, more accurately, his soul. He was completely charred black, with a horrifying bloody gash across his neck. He barely even looked human anymore. When he saw me staring, he lunged at me, looking absolutely feral. Liu Ruyan casually waved her hand, and he let out a miserable shriek, getting blasted several feet away. He scrambled up and glared at me, full of hate. "Ji Boda, don't think just because you stole my body that you've won. I'm not a vengeful demon right now. If Liu Ruyan tries to kill me, the backlash will destroy her too. I have already sent a dream to my father. He's coming to see me right now. When he gets here, both of you are dead. I totally ignored him, turned to Lu Ruyan, and asked, Ruyan, how come when I was a ghost I couldn't send dreams? Liu Ruyan rolled her eyes. Because your soul was bound by my spell. You couldn't do anything. Even the ghost barrier couldn't detect you. I grit my teeth. Oh wow, okay. Listen to you, acting so confident. I reached out and playfully squished her cheeks. And she just let me do it. The prince's ghost was floating off to the side, absolutely seething. Suddenly, a guard rushed in to report. The emperor had arrived. The prince was hyped. My father's here. You guys are so done. I straightened my posture, grabbed Liu Ruyan's hand, and said, since father is here, let's go greet him together. Seeing me, the panic on the emperor's face faded a bit. I asked, Father, what brings you here? I gave a super respectful bow. He said, I had a dream about you last night. You said Liu Ruyan was trying to kill you, and begged me to save you. I smiled and said, Father, I know you were just worried about me, which is why you had that nightmare. But look, I'm standing right here, perfectly fine. I spread my arms and flicked my sleeves. The emperor's face softened a lot. He said, perhaps I was just overthinking. I could tell he was still a bit sus. So I put on a guilty face and said, Father, I am truly at fault. I failed to understand your intentions, and I failed to share your burdens. Instead, I made you stress so much over my wedding that you can't even sleep in peace. I lowered my head, my voice dropping a notch. I said when I was a kid, I was stubborn and rebellious. You forbade me from eating candied hawthorns, but I'd sneak them anyway, and even defied you over it. Thinking back on it now, I'm so ashamed. Hearing me bring up my childhood, the emperor totally dropped his guard. He shook his head and laughed. Chenger, you still remember that? You were always a rascal. Always loved eating that peasant street food. But hey, since you love it so much, I'll just have the royal kitchen make it from now on, and send it over to your estate. How does that sound? I replied softly. Then I thank you, father. The emperor chuckled happily. I smugly flipped the prince the bird. I may not be royal, but I'm not stupid. After watching him all these days, anyone could pick up his little copy-paste speeches. Seeing the emperor completely fooled by me, the prince got so pissed, he shrieked and literally manifested in mid-air. The emperor saw him and freaked out. He yelled repeatedly, Liu Ruyan, a ghost. Quick, exorcise this ghost for me. The prince was completely charred black, so the emperor didn't even recognize him. Seeing his own dad try to exorcise him, the prince lost his mind. He lunged at me like an absolute maniac. I was just about to dodge when wide robes suddenly blocked my path. It was the emperor. He actually shielded me behind him and took a lethal ghost claw straight to the chest from the prince. After a tragic scream, the emperor collapsed to the ground. His face turned dead blue, and he stopped breathing. The prince froze for a second, then charged at me again in a total blind rage, just as he was about to hit me. Liu Ruyan cast a spell and pointed her finger. She instantly blasted the demon prince into pieces. The prince's face twisted in agony, and quickly vanished into thin air. He didn't even get to say a single word. The emperor passing away at the prince's estate shook the whole world. The fourth prince marched the royal guards and surrounded the estate, but the place was already empty. The crown prince was a tyrant, and the ministers had long hated his toxic bullying ways. So, they just went with the flow, and universally backed the fourth prince to take the throne. As for Liu Ruyan and me, the very night the emperor died, we packed up all the gold and jewels in the estate, and quietly ghosted the capital. I know my own limits, so I never even considered trying to be the emperor. We traveled all the way south, to a place where it feels like spring all year round. We bought a massive mansion in the city, to be our new home. On the day we got the keys, Liu Ruyan suddenly said she had to run an errand, and told me to head over firsty. I grumbled the whole carriage ride there. But the second I stepped off, I froze. My mom, wearing a beautiful new dress, was standing by the wooden gates, smiling at me. She said, Boda, you're home. I opened my mouth to speak, but I couldn't get a single word out. The next second, I dropped to my knees in front of her, and choked out, Mom. Liu Ruyan walked out from inside the gates, looking at me with a radiant smile. I remembered the promise we made. I said I'd build us a new house and give her and my mom a better life. She had smiled so brightly back then and told me we'd grow old together. End of episode. Don't forget to like, save, and subscribe.